Welcome to the MacJury. This is the home of truth, justice, and the Macintosh way. I'm Chuck Joyner, and we are in the Mac Voices stronghold in San Francisco, about 30 floors up, post WWDC Keynote, here with a couple friends. Actually, I think it's the Portland connection, to talk about what all's going on. So let's get started. Jean MacDonald, it's good to have you on the MacJury. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me again. I'm Jean from Smile. We do PDF pen, text expander, disk label, and we are here as usual to see what Apple has in store for us and how crazy will they make our lives this year.
I think they did.
Yeah. Actually, it wasn't as bad as some years, so I can't really complain. Nothing, no heart-stopping, oh my God, they added that to the OS moments. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, Jean is very organized. She has an iPad. The gentleman to my left and I are both old school paper, so I gave him his own mic just to make him feel techie. Mr. Ian Schray. Ian, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Chuck. I'm Ian Schray. I'm with Well-Read Apps, and we're a custom macOS and iOS developer. Actually, I have to be saying iOS 10 now, don't I? Rather than macOS developer. And we also make our own app, Dropkey, for the Mac. And
of course, viewers of MacVoicesTV and listeners to Mac Voices and the MacJury know both these people very well. And as you can tell, we spared no expense in our studio here. So I feel a little low, but that's all right. We've just recovered. We're just really, probably not even an hour post Keynote. And so we're all still trying to process things. We'd be here for a good 2 or 3 hours if we tried to cover everything. But Jean, I'm just going to ask you to start. What punched your button the most? What was the most exciting?
The maps in iOS 6. That was incredible. I mean, we heard that they were going to be doing something, but what they demoed with first of all, the design of the maps, just making them look nice and Apple-like. The turn-by-turn directions, which I've never owned a navigation or GPS app. I just resist it. And now I will have one.
Whether you want it or not.
I know, I won't get lost so much. And within that, I mean, they had that flyover thing, which was, bird's eye view of cities. And I think that's pretty cool. I don't know exactly how useful that would be, but that's such an Apple touch to say, like, look how excruciatingly cool we can make this look now. So.
I think we just came up with a new T-shirt, excruciatingly cool. Ian, how about you? Jean went software, iOS software. What was yours?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go software as well. Although the MacBook Pro, the new, what did they call it? The expanded MacBook Pro or the
with Retina?
Yeah, whatever. They've made a specific name there. Anyway, I think the new Siri enhancements are the thing that are going to make the biggest change in my life. The sports score thing. I knew, Jean, that when that happened, you were thinking, oh, Ian's probably freaking out. I was probably the only one clapping in my entire area. But how many times have I been, or anybody who's a sports fan, been asking somebody and trying to settle a bet? You got to sit there and tap the whole thing out. You can just speak the question into Siri now and find out who's taller, LeBron or Kobe. I thought that was just really, really cool. So I'm constantly checking sports scores and standings for my favorite teams. I like the fact that they went all out on sports. They didn't just pick Major League Baseball or NBA. They went European football leagues. They went college basketball, college football. NHL, of course. They pretty much hit everything. And it was, I thought it was really, really well done. I love the fact that you can do the restaurants and the movies. You can watch the trailer right in there. Siri is becoming a bit of an operating system in and of itself because you can do so much in there. And I thought that was really great. Being able to launch the apps, that's huge. How many times, you fumble around trying to find something, you can just say, launch something, or I don't know exactly how the wording is. But and then the fact that you can do it on the new iPad, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I've used a dictation before, but it never felt like enough. And I like the fact that I'll be able to do it on the iPad too, iPad as well.
Well, including our people like me who still just have the iPhone 4 and we haven't been able to play Siri games until now. With the new iPad, being able to use Siri on it, I'm excited about that too.
Mm-hmm. It feels like, and this probably shouldn't be a surprise, that Siri, they're really advancing Siri a lot to take it beyond maybe just voice dialing and the simple things. and that probably shouldn't be a surprise, but for some reason I got a glimpse watching the live blogs today that Siri could be everywhere very soon if they can handle the data processing back end.
And every indication is that they will be able to handle the data processing back end with the new data center in North Carolina, I think it is. They're going to be building one in our neck of the woods in Oregon. So they're going to have these all over, and I think they will be able to. The one thing that always gets better is data capacity, right, with technologies. So I think it really will get to that direction, and I think that, I remember back in the day, Steve Jobs was talking about the different ways to interact with a computing device. We used to have the mouse, and then we had multi-touch, and I kind of see Siri as that same deal. My kids use Siri all the time. My son, we have a very specific. My daughter doesn't care about games, but my son loves to play games, and he knows he only has 15 minutes to play a game, and he has to stop, and he's really good at it. But trying to get him to set a timer for himself would be ridiculous without Siri. So he just holds the button down and says, set a timer for 15 minutes. It shows him the timer, and then he can go in and play his game. So I think Siri is a way that people will react or interact with computers of any kind. And I know that it isn't going to be Siri per se on the Mac, but I don't see any reason why that couldn't be the case in the future.
Jean, from the Smile perspective, is Siri important, you think, to what you do, or can it be important? Or can you make it important? Or does it give you new ideas, maybe?
We still have to process that. I think, dictation is one thing, and obviously if you're working with PDFs or even with text expander, there's interesting things, we could take advantage of. But Siri as a search platform and tool, I'm not so sure about that yet. So.
Well, I ask because I think the voice thing is exciting, but I also think we've all found out already that not everything lends itself to voice. Not everything necessarily lends itself to a magic trackpad, although I think that's coming a lot closer. We have all of a sudden discovered interfaces and issues with hardware that are so much better with a trackpad than with a mouse. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a matter of finding the right tool for the right job, but they certainly seem to be advancing that agenda. And I ask the same question of you from the drop key perspective. Mm-hmm. As exciting as Siri is, does it figure into that?
Well, it could, except that drop key is not an application like other things where you go into it and use it. It's something that you launch when something needs to happen. So you drag a document from your desktop, let's say, into the drop key menu bar icon, and it will encrypt the file and you go through. It's not something you launch to use. It's something that launches when you need it. So I don't know how we would integrate something like Siri. I think we could go somewhere in the idea of who do you want to send it to, and you can just say the person's name maybe. That's something we probably could work with, but again, we're not going to have true Siri on the Mac OS. If we did, I'm sure we would do that, but I think that you're already doing other things with a mouse or trackpad. Why don't you just get in there? But I can see it for a lot of other apps. It just doesn't really apply to utilities like Dropkey, I think.
Right. So one of the most interesting things I thought that I saw, and one of the most useful, even though it doesn't seem so major, is Passbook. Jean?
Yeah, I was pretty excited about that, especially once I figured out that it was not a savings account program, which is the idea that Passbook conjures a middle-aged mind like my own. But as soon as they showed the boarding pass, I was, I get it now, and that will be totally great, because it's so true. There's all these little things that you'd like to have together, to be able to flash at a cash register or at TSA security, going through those things and make it easy. And I thought that was quite cool. And my colleague Greg, who we were just talking about it right afterwards, he said, that is something that we didn't even realize we had a problem with, and now Apple has gotten ahead of it before it became a big problem and came up with a solution, and that's really clever. So, yeah, I think it's cool.
Well, and everybody here traveled to one degree or another to get here, and you realize, okay, those online boarding passes are terrific, but you got to scrape through and try to figure out where it is in your email or save it to the camera roll and go and get it. And it's just, it works, but it's annoying. And you're right, Jean, it just takes one little annoyance out of our life. And think how that's going to integrate in with people beyond just those, with movie tickets and with loyalty programs and all.
I'm a big geolocation guy. I love the idea of my phone telling me what to do and when. I mean, it's telling me what to do. I mean, OmniFocus, I use OmniFocus, and it tells me when I get to the store, it tells me what items I need to buy at the store that I've been building a shopping list for. But I love the idea, too, with Starbucks, they showed it. When you show up at the Starbucks, it's basically a push notification saying you're at Starbucks. So you don't even have to hunt around for it. You just walk in, grab your phone, swipe, and you're ready to go. That is really, really cool. I think those little things make our lives infinitely easier.
So is that push notification done right?
Yes, and that's a whole other show, and I would like to do that show.
All right.
But yeah, push notification is something that can be done very, very wrong. And geolocation is something that can be done very, very wrong. And I don't mean incorrectly, I mean for evil. And I think that this is the kind of application, this is why geolocation and push notifications really were invented, this is the promise.
Well, it feels like now I can almost choose my push notifications. And I realize I could have with Foursquare, go in, check in when I get to Target and I see what soda is on sale. But now if I decide that I shop at Target enough, for example, and I get a rewards card, now I've got a place to store it, and now they can send me stuff that I probably really would be interested in, or at least have a much higher potential.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of the geolocation, I thought super cool, to back up a little bit, the phone options now when you get a call, not just to turn, put them and send them to voicemail, reply with a message, excellent, then remind me later, and I thought, oh yeah, that's good, and I set up a reminder for a time, but that one of the options is remind me when I leave. So when I wherever I am, I can't speak to that person on the phone, but presumably I get up and I go to another office, or I go get it in my car, and the iPhone says, hey, don't forget to call that person back that you blew off, an hour
And we
ago.
always forget, right?
I always forget.
Always.
I don't care. Those little badges on the dock, are pretty much my eye is blind to them now. I don't care what number they are. They just, so I think that kind of thinking about subtle thinking about what would actually work for people, what makes sense, is really cool. So
yeah, geofencing is fantastic technology. Yeah.
Well, okay, we've touched on iOS 6, and you're right. I mean, there's so many things in there. The maps, the passbook. I got to use my cheat sheet here. The do not disturb. I'm with Eugene. I think those options are just brilliant. They solve yet another problem, and that may be already out of hand, and they fix it. Let's talk about hardware, though. And I guess the hardware I want to talk about are the new MacBook Pros. We have upgraded existing MacBook Pros, but now we have a new one, a MacBook Pro with Retina, which sounds like the one that everybody's going to want, except for one thing. Except for two things for me. One is it's not 17-inch, although the pixel density may solve that problem for me. But I've now got to go to a MacBook Air style SSD kind of thing. I do not have the option of a rotational. And for someone that tends to do a lot of different projects, that's a little bit of a problem. Ian, am I the only one alone?
I think it's going to be one of those things, and I have some of the same concerns that you have for me, but I think that it's going to be something we're going to have to look at. We're really going to see, it's not how many pixels are on the screen, it's not the fact that it's Retina, all that stuff's all really great, it's how big is the menu bar? What's the smallest I can get the dock? What are the elements on the screen, and will it look like a 17-inch MacBook Pro? I think it will. Just because I don't need the glass to be a certain size. I need more stuff on the glass when I'm doing things. And I think that this could have that promise. If you can do that, then I think it'll alleviate a lot of it. The other thing with the rotational drives versus the flash memory drives, I mean, flash we know is way faster. I mean, just way faster. But I think that they showed off these adapters that are Thunderbolt to FireWire 800, and then Thunderbolt to gigabit Ethernet, right? They didn't do it because it has USB on board, right? Those, I think, could be your friend. So if you can get yourself a FireWire 800 drive, ideally bus-powered, and keep that with you, then I think a lot of those problems would be gone, especially if those drives are small. Then you could have a 2 terabyte FireWire 800 drive relatively inexpensively that would just work with your MacBook Pro. I think if I think about everything I'd want in the new MacBook Pro, I think they did it. I don't want the optical drive anymore. Agreed. I don't necessarily need onboard Ethernet. I don't plug into Ethernet very often. It's nice that I can do it with the adapter. I use FireWire 800 a lot. They've solved that. I'm happy to switch over to USB 3 eventually. But everything that I wanted them to do, they did with they call it the next generation MacBook Pro. That's the official name of it, by the way. They did everything that I would have wanted them to do.
Gene, the other aspect or the other option is iCloud, or if you go non-Apple, Dropbox or SugarSync or something like that. Your Smile has worked with iCloud, and for you all it has worked very, very well because I sync all my text expander snippets back and forth, and it's wonderful. Do you think that's the other option that we could use here, and does that address at least my concern? Because this is all about me.
Well, let me see if I understand. Because Text Expander syncs via Dropbox.
It does? Oh, I thought you did by iCloud.
No. PDF Pen on the iPad and on the Mac does sync. And they're different. They're totally different animals. iCloud has, different levels of how it deals with information, and there's document level, and that's what PDF Pen does, and that's fairly straightforward. Syncing little bits of data, like a snippet file is a different category. But I think, the better they make iCloud, the better for everybody. And I think that with iCloud, Apple seems to have gotten over the curse of the Apple, service. Without using any expletives, but
eWorld was awesome.
Okay, you just showed your age.
I sure did.
Yeah, because people seem to really like iCloud, and what they were showing today, that the Apple apps, themselves having the iCloud syncing, right, simultaneously making changes from a Pages document on the Mac shows up on the iPad at the same time. So clearly they didn't announce a new iWork, but one must be coming because
weird,
they showed
right?
They showed one.
Yeah, they did. Could just be an update. I don't think that warrants a whole new upgrade, right?
Yeah, I don't know what year they're stuck in.
I don't think they call them that anymore. I think they just call them.
One is 09.
Yeah, but do they actually still call it 09, or they just say Pages in the Mac App Store?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Look it up.
As a package.
We were at the Apple company store in Cupertino yesterday, and they had up on the wall iWork in the box and family packs of iWork in the box. And I wanted to keep an eye on it in case anybody reached for it. I just wanted to go slap. And I couldn't believe they had box software of their own kind. Funny.
That's funny, but it just goes to show you how we've built into our thinking. I think of the box, and you're right. It doesn't matter with the App Store.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The documents in the cloud thing sounds good. I just hope that Apple will open up iCloud a bit more, because it'll be great to have all of those things. That solves that part of my problem. But there are a lot of, and I'm sitting here with 2 third-party developers, and if I can't put the documents you all create, or in the case of you two, it's not exactly true, but if I'm using a graphics program of some kind that I want to store my documents in iCloud, they've got to open it up, or it's going to be a non-starter.
I agree, and I think I've used the iCloud documents in the cloud concept, obviously not on the Mac, but I've used it on iPad to iPhone, editing a flyer for my HOA to do something, and I made it all on my iPad, and then was out doing something and realized, I did the date wrong, I think, and I looked at it on my iPhone, and there it was, and I made the change, got back to the iPad, sent it out from that. It was great, and I want to be able to bring the Mac into that mix and be able to do that all the way around. Because then from the Mac, I have the options of, exporting the document and then put it up on a web server as a PDF for people to download, that kind of a thing. And you just can't do that on iOS, and that's okay. It doesn't need to. But I like the idea of keeping all those documents in sync, because as it stands now, doing all this with Dropbox it's just not realistic. Mm-hmm. Dropbox is easy for taking a document off the cloud and making some changes, but you can't really round trip very easily. It's a lot of extra steps.
And I also, and whoever said it about an update coming, we need to get feature parity, or this is not going to work. Because right now you can't do everything on Keynote on the iOS that you can on the Mac, and I don't want to lose something that I've already created, complex transition-wise or effect-wise, by working on it on my iPad.
Yeah, well, they've got to be. I mean, that's got to be their roadmap, I'm sure.
I would hope so. So let's see, what else do we have? Oh, well, I want to circle back to the hardware, because the refreshed MacBook Airs, is that something to get as excited about as... First of all, I need to do a disclaimer. I was reading live blogs. These two were in to one degree or another, so they got to hear the entire presentation. Was the response good to that? It seemed to be in the live blogs.
Yeah. Well, good, that was the first thing that they started to talk about, and so we didn't know, about the new next generation MacBook Pro, but I think for the Airs, the increased flash drive size, so now you could get 512 gigabytes. That's huge. If I think all Air users will agree. And I forget what else that made me excited about the Airs, but and I thought, when I first saw that, I thought, oh, I guess I'm upgrading. I almost tweeted who wants to buy my current MacBook Air? Oh yeah, you could get 8 gigs of RAM.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also, that makes a big difference. Especially for this kind of data intensive things like video editing and photo editing and stuff like that. So that was, and the USB 3. And you have to admit they I guess if you didn't see it when you watch the keynote, you'll see how they flash up a picture of some PC notebook that has a USB 2 and a USB 3 slot. I mean, and then they say oh, come on, and then of course Apple just makes it one, and they both work.
I love they made fun of the fact that they were color coded.
They were color
remember that?
Yeah. That's right.
Well, and they're plug compatible, aren't they? So. I mean, I don't have any experience with USB 3.
It's the same plug.
Yeah,
it's the same plug, so it's very easy to mess that up on a PC. I would assume.
That seems such an obvious thing to do, is just make it one. But
yeah. So anyway, I thought the just those things right there. So the faster processor you could get now, the RAM, the greater storage, and the USB 3. It was okay, all things being equal, I'd be pretty much ready to go up, to a new MacBook Air. But then the MacBook, the new next generation MacBook was shown, and I got pretty excited about it for a while. But by the end, I was thinking, still, it's 15 inches. I'm of the mind that 15 inches is just more than I want to carry around now. Yep, it's big. I mean, I went from a 15-inch MacBook Pro to a 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I thought was the greatest thing until I got the 13-inch MacBook Air, and when you have only 2.5 pounds you're carrying around, to go to 4.5 pounds again, it seems it would be hard. But it's thinner. I mean, that was interesting. It's about as thin as a MacBook Air. So.
What's your primary machine, Jean? Is it your MacBook Air?
Yeah, I just have one. I decided a long time ago. For a while, I had a G3 tower and a PowerBook piece, the G3 PowerBook, and I got mixed up with some files at one point, and I said, I don't really need both of these computers, and that was it. That was at least 10 years ago now. So I'm happy. I'm a happy single computer owner.
Ian, how about you? What are you an Air person?
No, I don't have a MacBook Air because I want my computer to be bigger. Steve Jobs talked about the truck and how people need a truck. If I'm going to have a truck, I want this is not how I don't really have a truck or have a need for a truck in real life, but if I'm going to have a truck for a computer, it's going to be the biggest, meatiest truck I can get, right? Because I have the iPad, and I do a lot of work on my iPad. I have a keyboard for it. I do the whole deal, and my iPad is absolutely not just a consumption device. I really do use it almost as a different kind of a laptop. So for me, because since I'm doing so many things on the iPad, I want a bigger computer. Like I've been using a laptop as my only machine for about 10 years as well. I'm actually thinking of waiting for the next generation of the iMacs and just have my iPad be my portable device. I use a MacBook Pro plugged into a 23-inch display, hard drives all plugged into it, and I rarely take my laptop home anymore from the office. I just have my iPad. I'll do a whole weekend that way. I almost didn't bring my MacBook Pro to WWDC. At the last second, I packed it in there. Who knows if I'll use it? But I'm actually the opposite direction. So I want my desktop computing experience to be big, beefy, powerful, and I'll just be portable with an iPad, because an iPad's lighter than a MacBook Air, right? So that to me is the way I want to do things.
It sounds like you and I are a little more aligned than Jean, but to hear you say that you might abandon a portable Mac completely, that flies in the face of the way I think of things, I guess, because I want to take as much as I can with me so I can work anywhere, anytime, no compromises. Well, and the compromise I'm making is either A, dollars, or B, weight. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that I'm going to do that. I'm saying, like, that's the mindset I'm in right now. Is if I was going to go buy a computer tomorrow, I'd have to really think about. It's always been, when I go to buy a computer, it's which laptop should I get, which MacBook should I get. Now it's going to be like, which Mac should I get? Maybe I'll even go with a mini hooked into a display, and it just starts to erode my need for a Mac in general. I'll never not need one, but I have a household with my wife and my 2 little kids. There's a very good chance that my wife's MacBook is the last laptop she's ever going to own. She'll move over to iPad and be great with it. My kids may never have their own laptop. I mean, they're 8 and 6 right now. A few more years, we have to really start thinking about getting a computing device for them. Why wouldn't I get them an iPad? They already know how to use it. They can do everything they want to do. You can print from them. You can do whatever. So that's, I think, where a lot of users are moving. And I think maybe we're not typical in what our needs are.
Well, speaking of the truck, the one thing that didn't get announced at the keynote was a MacBook Pro refresh. Excuse me, a Mac Pro refresh. And yet, Jean saw something on Twitter, and we checked the Apple Store, and it looks like they were indeed refreshed, at least in some fashion. Have you looked at the specs?
Yeah, it's a processor. They got new processors, but they did not get Thunderbolt, which I think was what people were wanting. I just was trying to figure that out, but that's what, people have been calling it, in quote marks, an update. So I think it's just a faster processor.
Did it have USB 3? I can't remember.
Well, if I remember correctly, USB 3 is on the motherboard for Ivy Bridge. So if they went with an Ivy Bridge processor, and that may be laptop only. I got to admit, I'm not up on processors.
Yeah, it's the Xeon E5. 12-core model boasting 2.4 gigahertz Intel Xeon E5 CPU processor.
Well, I don't know that that's going to satisfy anybody, all the MacBook Pro people, or Mac. I keep doing that. Sorry, Mac Pro.
Yeah, because we hardly say that words anymore. I mean, I really thought there was a lot of wishful thinking going on, and that really the desktop computer is not what Apple's interested in anymore, and certainly not like this high-end, beast compared to, they have the iMac, which is certainly well equipped with, so I don't know. I think like we see Apple sunset things all the time, and I have a feeling that we're not going to see anything like a brand new Mac Pro ever. If they didn't do it now, when would they do it? So.
Well, you've looked at, or at least it was described, I shouldn't say, you all saw it Final Cut running on the new MacBook Pro with Retina, or the next generation MacBook Pro or whatever. That was really interesting, and I'm anxious to see how that works. I'm very anxious to see the screens of that, because there's been so much discussion about Apple abandoning the professional market. And if they didn't do an adequate update to the Mac Pro, I got it right that time, then that's a little bit of an issue. On the other hand, the new MacBook Pro may satisfy the high end, and the thinking may be that if you really need that big a display, you just take an extra one with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what the people who really want a new Mac Pro, one of the things they want is what Apple's not going to be offering anymore, is open slots, build your own thing, swap things in and out. I mean, that's for a very small percentage of the user base that we've seen time after time. Apple is perfectly happy to say, hey, we got this 90% of the people want this thing that's easy. They want a longer battery life. They don't care if they can switch out the battery, you know, that kind of stuff. And they've been proven right on all of those things. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of machine that we, you know, certainly all had at one point and thought like, oh, well, I have a bay for this optical drive and I could put a zip drive in it too. You know, that kind of stuff is done.
I think I still have scars on my knuckles from upgrading my tower machines.
Well, Gene, it's funny you say that because the battery thing, you can't swap the batteries out, but there are external batteries you can plug in. So there are workarounds. Up till now, and as of now, as far as I know, we don't have some of those workarounds for graphics cards or certain things, slots, if you will, in the Mac Pro. I'm hoping that as Thunderbolt develops, since that's such a main line to the motherboard, that we can see some of those things take place and turn a high-end iMac or one of the brand new MacBook Pros into something that addresses some of those issues.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to see, but I don't know. Portable is where it's at, and
absolutely. Okay, looking down and seeing what else. Well, Mountain Lion. I mean, Mountain Lion at $19.99, $20 for all your Macs, however many you have. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that just seems so brain dead simple. I mean, Apple's dragging everybody along into the future, and you can't not go. Am I wrong?
Oh, I think you're right. There are still a lot of people who aren't using Lion though, and that are using Snow Leopard. I think, and I'm no expert on this, but I do believe that going from Lion to Mountain Lion will be a gentler upgrade than going from Snow Leopard to Lion. I know as a developer, we've built technologies that are Lion only. Dropkey is Lion only. Because of a very, very core functionality to it, we can't go back to Snow Leopard. But in our research going to Mountain Lion, it hasn't been a big deal. So maybe the upgrade will be gentler. And remember, that's why people don't upgrade. It's not because of the price, obviously. It's because their stuff doesn't work in Lion when they were using Snow Leopard. At least that's been my experience talking to people. So if this is a gentler upgrade, then that's great. And the $19.99 for developers, that means, oh, cool, we can use some of the new tech that we're going to learn about this week and then can't talk about it at all. But here's the trouble. Here's the big trouble as an independent developer, and Gene, I think you'll agree with some of this, is that the $19.99, as these prices go down, it's going to be harder for developers to command a higher premium on our apps. So Dropkey is $9.99. And, you know, it's horrible of me to say this, but, I mean, Dropkey doesn't have anywhere near the functionality of Mountain Lion, yet it's half the price of Mountain Lion. So it's going to be very, very difficult to justify some of these prices sometimes, and it always kind of freaks me out when the price goes down. I'd rather it was just free, honestly.
I had the same thought, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't they just make it free?
Free would be fine. Free would not be a big deal.
They want people to upgrade. That's their,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they want people to have the best experience using the hardware. I thought the same thing. When the operating system went down to $29.99, you know, it was because it always was pretty much like $79 for many iterations, and $79 sounded like a good price for an operating system, cheaper than Windows, but it's an operating system. It shouldn't be that cheap. But then, you know, Apple wants people to upgrade. It's all about the hardware for them. I think we all know that, but I don't think our customers or our potential customers understand that Apple isn't charging you $19.99 because it's so easy to make an operating system.
Right.
They're subsidizing that with hardware sales, which your average third-party developer has no hardware to subsidize.
But we don't have this problem on iOS
Right.
at all, because the operating
Operating
system is
system is
just
free,
free. And
yeah.
free means you don't even have a dollar sign, right? So that people don't even equate that, the
Right.
cost of the operating system, against the price of apps. So I don't mind paying the $20 for an operating system. So as a consumer, I'm not complaining, but as a not really even a developer, but as a kind of watching the whole ecosystem, I think it's a little odd that they still charge for one operating system and not the other, right?
I think they should have just made it 99 cents.
See, that's even worse.
People would say, like, too expensive, should be free.
Yeah, exactly. 1 star.
1 star.
I'm fascinated by this because I sat there and thought, 1999, wow, that's great. That's brain dead simple. It generates some money for Apple because they do need to cover costs. And I would think from the developer perspective, it would encourage you both to want to adopt all the new technologies and bring it up to that level, because what do they say, 80% of users right now are on Lion. So that means that somewhere near that
It's
number
actually
at this point.
40%.
40%? Oh, 40%? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I wrote that one down.
Okay, it's still a high percentage.
It is, yeah.
Not at 80, but 40. I would think that would encourage you to do it. So that's why Apple is making it affordable, instead of using Microsoft's model of making 25 different flavors of the operating system that nobody understands and pricing it at a point where you think, oh my God, and you're not sure if it works anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not saying I want them to charge more. I think they should just, as Ian says, just make it free so people don't equate the operating system with a price point.
Right. It's really what it comes down to is if you have $40 to spend, let's say, in the Mac App Store, and you're going to you need, let's say that the next version of PDF Pen, for example, or Dropkey requires Mountain Lion, and they don't even have Mountain Lion, they're going to go in there and they're going to spend 20 of their 40 on Mountain Lion, and then they may not be able to afford our apps, and so that hurts. I'm not saying everything should be free. I'm really not saying that at all. But free is completely different than any amount of money. So I would say either make it $50 or make it free. But when you start to bring it down incrementally like this, I think it's a dangerous thing, at least for us.
Well, again, it's very interesting to hear the developer perspective, because I tend to think of it more from the consumer and maybe a little more analysis, but you're looking at it as bread and butter and what the implications are. And I never thought of the fact that the operating system price could affect your thinking on the price of your application, because I guess the way I look at an application, does it do what I want it to do or need it to do? And if it does, then I'm willing to pay pretty much whatever I need to pay to get that product to do it, assuming I have the need that badly. The operating system, I mean, we've all heard, you all both have done plenty of user group shows where people don't upgrade their Macs, they don't upgrade their hardware or software because they don't need to do any of this stuff. It does just what they want right now, so they're frozen in time and they're fine.
Well, I mean, as Ian said, you know, there are reasons to go Lion only, you know, and we want people to upgrade too, you know. We do want them to upgrade, because we don't want to leave them behind if we go. But our last couple of releases have been like, Text Expander and PDF Pen are both Snow Leopard or better, you know, and that was new for us. We used to go back at least one operating system, but because it's so inexpensive, and now that it's so pretty easy to do the update through the App Store, we do see a higher adoption rate of the operating system. So.
Well, guys, I know you all have to get back to WWDC because there are a lot of sessions that you both need to attend. What did we miss? Anything that really struck you? I mean, you and I, we all have pages of notes here, but what's the most exciting thing that we didn't talk about, Ian, for you?
I think there are a lot of things that are coming in Mountain Lion that are very interesting, but we've seen all this before. You know, when they did the stuff earlier this year, nothing is really all that new. You know, there's some of the gesture stuff, the way that Safari is going to handle tabs differently, and And I think that's great. I'm not a tab user in general, but I might be with this because I can basically expose through them, sort of. Power nap is neat. I mean, but it's used. Did you notice that it's only the new MacBooks, the new MacBook Pro, and the new MacBook Air?
Second generation.
Second generation. You're right. You're right.
What
So it's only with the recent stuff, so it may not be as relevant to a lot of users like me. But I think it's a very cool technology, and it's something that I never thought was really realistic. Like anything was possible, right?
I know. I did make a note of that too as something that I thought was very cool.
What really did stand out, sorry to continue the thought here, but what really did stand out for me is that they announced some numbers on the number of Mac users there are. And they said that there are 66 million Mac users. Now, I've always been stuck on like that 25 million number. 66 blew me away. That's a lot more than I thought. And that actually is 3 times as many as there were 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, there were 22 million Mac users, and now there are 66. That's amazing to me. And then, 26 million copies of Lion were sold, which is about 40% are using Lion. But remember, I think there's a huge number of those that can't run Lion, whether they choose to or not. So I think that 40% is probably skewed a little bit. But it blew my mind as a Mac developer, and I do iOS as well, but as a Mac developer, that's a big number for us. It's a much higher than I had thought. Because we never know until Apple announces it, right? I mean, some analysts will say something, but when they say it take that number.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
On Power Nap, the one thing that concerned me just a touch, right now when I put my Mac to sleep, it limits its power consumption. So I know it's really not sucking anything off, sucking the battery down. Now, with Power Nap, and they say, it's very power efficient. I'm going to need to see how much, because it does concern me a little that my Mac may be doing something when I intended to put it to sleep and have it conserve power, that it may still be doing things. That's...
I wonder if it, there's probably an option not to run it unless it's, plugged in, as opposed to running off battery. But it is pretty cool, like be able to do time machine backups, so you could postpone, if you, like me, and often say, like, stop backing up to Time Machine because it's doing it at just the moment where you need all your processor. Stop the, and be able to say, okay, now I know it'll back up even though I've put it to sleep, and, the backups are important. But I agree. I mean, they said it would be power efficient. We'll see what that means when we have our hands on it.
How about your pick for what we haven't talked about that was most exciting?
There's so many cool things. I know.
Well, you can have 2, Jean.
I can. Well, I liked the new stuff, like the VIP thing. So you could designate contacts as VIPs that you get push notifications when they email you. Which I definitely have a couple people in mind who will go on that list. But do not disturb on the iPhone. I think that's a problem whose time was
so
already
elegantly done too, right?
Yes,
the way that they did
it's really well done. They do this, so you won't hear text messages, in the middle of the night from your time zone challenged friends on the East Coast who don't realize it's only 5 o'clock in the morning in Portland. And
us to them when we call them at 10 o'clock at night our time, right?
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
Oh, okay, it works both ways. But and phone calls as well. But so I thought it was kind of interesting that they had, an option that if somebody calls you twice within 3 minutes, then the second call will come through because you're assuming that it's some emergency, which is an interesting thing that everybody apparently has that behavior. If you don't get through the first time, you just call again, and that's a signal that, so you better pick up the phone, or it's a telemarketer. That's a problem.
Or it's your really drunk friend that just keeps calling you, calling you, right?
Yeah, they need a special operating system tweaks for you, Ian, for that kind of.
Any names? No, never mind.
No, I think she meant for me.
Yeah.
For you personally. Well, but wasn't that feature, if I understood that correctly, can't you designate that for specific contacts?
Yes, you can. So you could have like your either a group or your VIPs or your favorites or something like that.
Right. So somebody can't carpet bomb you and assume they're going to be able to get through the protection.
Right. That's right. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up, I think Ian probably thought this was very cool too, is the guided access for the iPad, where I had to see this demoed. You pick a part of the interface that you don't want your kids to be able to tap and move through. You'd like draw a line around it. I mean, it was fascinating how natural it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't like to highlight this thing or draw, a marquee and something around it. You just draw a line around it, and it knows, like, okay, make the menu bar off limits, or make these buttons off limits to the kids, and also that the home button will not exit the program. So single app mode.
Yeah.
So kids can, like, play with an iPad, and there's no worry whatsoever that they're going to screw up the program they're in or that they'll get anywhere else on the iPad.
Well, it helps to idiot-proof the iPad too. I hate that term, but we have a client that wants us that we're making some sales tools for their physical sales reps, and it's an all internal application. It doesn't go in the App Store. You can't go find it. But what happens is when they're doing touching the iPad, they'll inevitably hand it over and push the home button, and then it goes back, and then they have to, hold on, give me that back for a second. And the idea that when something's going on the screen and you touch something, nothing's going to work, that's a big deal because it's easy to touch those things. When your iPad is not the central item that you're working on, which for most of us it is, when we're using it. But they're using it along with a message, in real life message. The iPad needs to just stop being this wonderful computing tool and more to a tool itself. And I think that actually enables it. When I saw that, I instantly went there. I didn't go to the kid thing. Isn't that funny? Like, my kids are better at my iPad than I am. But I didn't go to the kid concept because they're so in control and so focused on it. It's really about people that fidget or whatever else. So I thought that technology was really, really cool. And it's probably the first time that I'll make use of a assistive technology in a non-handicapped way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for the time and the analysis and the opinions, especially since you were both in there and the rest of us had to read the live blogs. I hope you'll come back after we've all had a chance to digest this a little more. And I know there are going to be things you can't talk about, but what you can talk about, come back and talk.
I'd love to do that.
Absolutely.
Ian, where can they find you?
You can find me at wellreadapps.com, even though that site is kind of bare bones right now. But if you go to getdropkey.com, you can get our Mac app right now.
Great, thank you. Jean?
I'm at MacJury on Twitter, and that's the best place to find me or see what's up. Smilesoftware.com is where all of our apps are, and that would cover it.
Terrific. I'll have all those links in the show notes, as I always do. Folks, thank you for joining us for this post-Macworld MacJury. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. The verdict is in. Thanks for watching. MacVoices TV is part of the MacVoices Group and a member of Mac Level 10.